Why is Mtashed working on a gacha game by Mr. Tuhu? So Mtashed is working on a gacha game, and it looks like this. And it looks kind of like Honkai Star Rail from the looks of it, but I don't know. That's what I heard too, but we'll see.
Boy Tuhu. Recently,
Saw,
I had
dude.
a guy ask me in my stream if I was going to play this game that Mtashed said he was working on, an upcoming game called Godforge. I knew that Mtashed had made a video about it before on his YouTube channel, but I didn't watch it then, so I decided to go check it out now that some of my own chats brought it up to me. And after watching that and a demo video for Godforge
that is Calliope Mori, right? No, this is probably some gacha chick. I feel like it's not Calliope.
The developers of the game put out on their own YouTube channel, I have a few things to say about them, or to put it more bluntly, I'm gonna talk a whole bunch of shit about the game, and more specifically, Mtashed's involvement with it. First, I should clarify right now that I don't know Mtashed personally or anything, right? I never even...
That gives him free license to shit on his game. He doesn't know him. He has no obligation. He's a man of honor, a man of his word, an honest man.
Talk to the guy. We might have been on the same Gacha Cast episode that Tectone hosts that one time I was on it, but the point is that he sure as doesn't know me. I don't watch his content regularly, and before I watched his Godforge promo video, the most I knew about him was that he's the guy who keeps saying he's gonna quit this or that MiHoYo game.
I feel like that's so sad to like, oh, yeah, Mtashed, that's the guy who quits every gacha game he plays, right?
But doesn't because he doesn't want to have to go back to making Diablo or Destiny 2 videos that get half or less the views that his gacha videos do. Or at least,
I mean, that's a pretty nice video. 80,000 views, 60.
That's what I assume. That, and I have a chip in my shoulder when it comes to the gacha content creation community as a whole, not just Mtashed, because honestly, I think a lot of y'all are fucking fake as shit and shouldn't even be considered gacha.
I'm the most fake of all.
If the only gacha games you play are MiHoYo and or Wuthering Waves. And
well, what should the criteria be? How many gacha games do I need to play before I'm a gacha YouTuber? How many videos of a gacha game do I need to make to be a gacha YouTuber? Like,
and no, getting sponsored to play a smaller gacha for like a day or two, and then never touching again afterwards ain't good enough. If you want to know more about
okay, sure,
why I feel this way, or if you're just wondering who the fuck this weeb is with all these anime body pillows hung up on the wall behind him, talking shit, go watch these two previous videos of mine. They'll explain where I'm coming from better than
this guy's the only one who should be praised
than I will here. Links in the description. Now that you have this context, and having watched Mtashed's Godforge video and the 2.0 developer demo video, so that you guys don't have to, let me break down all the problems that I have with the game and Mtashed's involvement with it. First problem, in no particular order by the way, Mtashed says that the graphics in this game look, quote, incredible, unquote.
Yeah, no. Bro, I don't know, man. I don't know who you think you're marketing to, but the people who play Honkai Star Rail, the people who play Genshin Impact, the people who play Zenless Zone Zero, they ain't playing it for like the RPG, the gameplay. They playing it because them some good anime titties, you know what I mean? This don't look like that.
I'm not a 3D animator or anything, so I can't tell you how good the models are. Maybe the 3D models themselves are actually quite...
You don't need to be a 3D animator, bro. It looks like shit. Come on. This is shit with legs wearing like a little like gold-plated shit dress. Come on.
High fidelity.
Wearing like he's holding like a gold spoon or like something you pick your ears with.
So I hesitate to comment on the graphics themselves specifically. At the very least, I don't personally have an issue with them. What I do have a problem with is the presentation. Like, there's nothing about this game that intrigues me in particular. Like, I'm not captivated or impressed by what I'm seeing. The character designs are nothing special. The animation...
Bro, is this Raid Shadow Legends?
The character design...
It's so tough to make a game like this because like these characters do not distinguish themselves enough, right? I feel like that's why our cartoony art style, it's not just like, oh, it's cartoons. Utilizing cartoons can make for much better silhouettes and much easily recognizable characters and discernible characters, right? If you don't believe me, look at like AFK Journey. I think AFK Journey has some of the really good character designs that aren't anime necessarily, not Japanese influenced, but it is Western cartoon influenced, but it still like manages to like have all the characters be unique and have their own kind of like silhouette. This doesn't look good. I'm just being honest.
Are nothing special, the animations are bland and lack impact. Like, what the hell is this animation supposed to be? I assume the characters have voice lines, but I couldn't hear any of them, or at least not well, in either Mtash's video or the demo to get a sense of how the units themselves are characterized, so that doesn't help. I mean, this is their gacha summoning animation, for God's sake. Like, I don't give...
No shot. No shot.
That doesn't help. I mean, This
is alpha. This is alpha. This is what's before alpha? 0? I don't know.
is their gacha summoning
-1?
animation, for God's sake. Like, I don't give
this ain't not finished. This is not finished. Come on. He probably is like, yo guys, this is like pre alpha, right?
For God's sake.
That's not it. That doesn't even fit the aesthetic, right? It doesn't even fit the aesthetic.
Like, I don't give a shit that this is supposed to be like a pre-alpha build or whatever the fuck. You're out here asking for beta signups, and you don't even have a fucking summoning animation done yet? One of the most important aspects of a gacha game is the
presentation. Okay, well, yeah, he beat me to the punch. Presentation, character designs, right? Character designs and presentation is the most important. It's why does everyone have this game on their phone? The Pokemon trading card game, because it's good, dude. The presentation is really good. The card game isn't even that deep. There's not a huge card pool. There's not a lot to do in the game except open packs, okay? But this game is doing work, and so many people have it on their phones, and so many people are playing it because it just has really smooth, very good presentation.
Whether it's the graphics themselves or the animations or whatever else.
Holy shit. Wait, go back. What game is that? Bro, what game is that? That's not Nikkei, right?
There needs to be something visual about the game that stands out to potential players to give them a reason to come try your game, to hook them in so that you then have a chance to show them what the rest of the game is really made of, and then turn them into a regular player who will then stick with your game and keep playing it. At least for a while. But judging from what I've seen so far, Godforge doesn't really have much of that visual hook that I'm looking for. I guess maybe the only thing that
it doesn't have a soul, right? It doesn't have a vision, I think. Like, what do you see over here? It's just like, okay, ancient Egyptian, maybe warriors from different timelines or different medieval fantasy periods, right? Finding each other, maybe gods, right? But it just doesn't have... It's not original. Like, it feels like maybe a more realistic take on like Smite or Age of Mythology, but put in a Honkai Star Rail format. It's just like it's not very appealing. I feel like this art style and the way they're executing this just doesn't look like it's executed well, right? Not only is it unoriginal, but it's lacking a lot of punch.
I guess maybe the only thing that I can think of is its whole aesthetic. Like,
I'd argue no one's really looking for that visual hook, right? It's not appealing.
If you're a big fan of ancient mythologies from around the world and seeing them all together in the same universe and interacting with each other, but you're not a filthy weeb or anything, and you prefer a more, let's just say, Western art style,
yeah,
then maybe you'd give this game a try. And even if the graphics were what people...
And I wonder if it's just like Mtash's perspective, because he's not nearly a weeb, but maybe he like... I don't really know Mtash, like, his history with gacha games, but it kind of almost feels like he fell into the space because he's always played like Destiny, right? Or what other games that he played that he was making videos on? Diablo 4, right? He likes a lot of Western RPGs. And I don't know how he fell into like Honkai Star Rail of all things into this gacha space. But yeah, anime aesthetic to this audience is super important. It is incredibly important. It's like a tenet. You know, you can't betray that.
people consider to be good.
I mean, at least from the perspective of like Mtashed trying to appeal to his audience base who followed him for playing a weeb anime gacha game. You know what I mean? It's like there's not a lot of synergy there.
That doesn't mean shit to me, because the game itself looks boring. Again, it doesn't give me a compelling...
Because every gacha game is boring, by the way. Every gacha game is like pretty shit. Like it's not on its own, on its face. Every gacha game isn't as fun as an actual game. The only reason why you're playing it is because you like to collect the waifus, you like the character design, maybe you're into the narrative, maybe you're into the story, right? There's a lot more other hooks than just the game. So no one's like playing Honkai Star Rail just for the game. Like if you're trying to play Honkai Star Rail just for the game, I could tell you like so many RPGs that are a lot better than it. This being the number one, Metaphor ReFantasio. Play this if you like JRPGs. Anyway.
Compelling enough reason for me to go try it. So at the end of the day, why would I bother with this game when I already play a game like Honkai Star Rail? Speaking of Star Rail, the second problem that I have is with the gameplay itself, and I'm going off of the gameplay that was in, like I said earlier, the Godforge 2.0 demo video that the Fateless devs themselves put up on their YouTube channel. The best way that I can describe this is Raid Shadow Legends had an unwanted bastard child with Star Rail, and this is what you get. You have the Raid aesthetic or art style that's combined with the Star Rail UI. The turn order is in the top left, your character icons that display their health and other information.
It's just, it is very, very inspired by Honkai Star Rail, right? I think that's pretty clear.
Along the bottom left, the third-person over-the-shoulder camera angle for your units, buttons for auto and pause and other stuff on the top right, and the action buttons like basic attack and skill on the bottom right. Hell, your character's status effects like buffs and debuffs are even shown underneath their health bars, and enemies have their own HPs and whatever that yellow bar is supposed to be displayed right over them, just like in Star Rail. Given that Mtashed said that he's a consultant for this game, it sounded like, and is helping out with QA and design work, I believe, I don't think any of this is a coincidence. Maybe some things are taken from Raid Shadow Legends instead, I wouldn't know, I don't play Raid, but as someone who's played Star Rail since launch, and am still playing it, when I look at this battle UI, I know exactly where it comes from. But if it were only the UI design that got copy-pasted from Star Rail, then I wouldn't really care that much. After all, you can argue that, you know, Wuthering Waves copy-pasted their UI from Genshin, and no one seems to have a problem with that, right? No, what makes this...
nobody cares. Like, if you're lifting these type of ideas and you're reformatting them and you're putting a spin on it and making it better, nobody gives a fuck, right? I mean, Palworld basically lifts a lot of, like, very similar Pokemon-looking designs, right? Nobody gives a fuck, though, because the game is fucking good, right? Robocero.
Actual problem for me is that it really looks like they just straight up copied Star Rail's core gameplay too. Every character in this game looks like they have a basic attack, skill, and ultimate. They also have a faction they belong to, an element, or whatever the equivalent of that is in this game, and a class. Your teams have 4 characters who fight one by one when their turn comes up, and they can only use either their basic or skill unless they have their ultimate, in which case it seems like they can pop it whenever they want. Just like in Star Rail. Again, this isn't necessarily an issue on its own. You can have games that are clearly inspired by others. And to use the Wu-Wu example again, Wuthering Waves has pretty similar gameplay to Genshin, at least on the surface. But the more you...
This is the thing, though. This is the number one problem with this type of approach, okay? So, like, copying other game ideas, let's be honest, or, like, copying other designs, copying other IPs, nobody gives a fuck. As long as the game is good, nobody cares, right? Okay, so maybe this game is good, right? But what ends up happening when you do lift these designs, copy over these very defining features of another game, of another IP, what happens is that the audience will always compare your product to that. And the best example I have of that is with Stellar Blade, right? If anyone has played Stellar Blade, and before that has played Nier Automata, I guarantee you the entire game feels like Stellar Blade is like a fangirl of Nier Automata. And in turn, what happened to anyone who's played Nier Automata, the game felt like a very watered down version of it. You know, I personally, that's something that could never escape my mind throughout my entire time playing it. And the only time Stellar Blade got good for me was like towards the end, where you started getting, or where you basically got all of your upgrades, your powers, and different ways to play the main character, right? Or different attacks to weave into your combo string. Before that, like the music, the atmosphere, the girl, right? The combat, it was very Nier Automata like, but it didn't deliver on what Nier Automata was. And it just was a very bad, not bad, but it was just like the experience was a lot worse for copying Nier Automata. So yeah, the problem with this type of approach to risk in doing like this and lifting successful designs is you're going to be compared to it.
You play Wuwa, the more you realize it's not quite the same as Genshin, because Genshin is much more about, team building and elemental reactions and stuff like that, whereas Wuwa is a lot more dodge this, bitch. I hope the same goes for Godforge, where it's at least a little more than just, a Western take on Star Rail. Maybe this game has additional mechanics that differentiates gameplay enough from Star Rail to make it feel more like its own game once you've been playing it enough. But
I feel like I understand too their perspective. It's like, some people would like Star Rail's combat, but with just a Western sort of look to it. But I would argue that Star Rail would not be where it is without the anime gacha sort of Coomer audience, I don't think Honkai Star Rail would be nearly as successful if it didn't pander to an anime appreciating audience, right? It's like, the thing is, Star Rail's gameplay isn't anything special. It isn't anything novel. It isn't anything great. It's okay, but it's a vehicle for a pretty cool narrative, like very great characters, writing, and as well, just very good character design. It doesn't. Besides that, it's like everything else is so secondary, tertiary, to that.
All this leads up to my biggest issue when it comes to the gameplay. It's using Star Rail as its inspiration.
Yeah.
Of all the games it could have copied its gameplay from, for whatever godforsaken reason, they chose Star Rail.
Yeah, Star Rail isn't that great. Like, you could copy like Bravely Default, you could copy like Metaphor Refantasio, you can copy Persona, you could copy like Dragon Quest. I don't know. I mean, like, definitely you want to copy a gacha game for sure. But it's like, as far as gacha mobile games go and RPGs, Honkai Star Rail is definitely not the craziest.
And I just want to ask, why? Mtashed says in his promo video that he wants Godforge to be a knowledge-based game. And in the context of turn-based games, knowledge is more or less skill, because the more you know about how a turn-based game works, as in its mechanics and such, the better you'll play, obviously. Since it's not like, mechanical skill like aim or dodging is a thing in this genre. So for all intents and purposes, I'm gonna have to assume that Mtashed wants Godforge to be a skill-based game. But I don't know if he's aware, but Star Rail is...
That's so weird. It's like, it's supposed to be a gacha game. It's supposed to appeal to the lowest demographic, the most casual fan base out there. It's supposed to appeal to... And it's also supposed to be accessible. The reason why Honkai Star Rail is so very popular is because it's accessible. It's so easy to play. They have the fun button, and it's a turn-based RPG on your phone. It's so easy to play. It's so easy to hop into. And to say like, oh yeah, let's just make it skill-based. Let's make it the Dark Souls of Star Rail. It's like, hopefully, give it a shot, I guess.
Was far from a skill-based game because it's an extremely simple game as far as turn-based games go. Star Rail's gameplay boils down to countering enemy elements and rolling gacha so you can use the latest and greatest limited 5-star character to then go destroy any of the endgame modes with them, because the enemies you face there, and the extra battle conditions there, favor you having that latest character. Like, the most complicated mechanics that I can think of in Star Rail are things like speed thresholds, moves where your units gain more actions per cycle at specific speed stats, and Yunli's ult, which surprisingly requires you to have pretty extensive knowledge of enemy attacks and good situational awareness so you don't end up wasting it and having it do a lot less damage because Yunli didn't parry an enemy attack properly. And
Sure.
no, before you ask, I don't think zero cycling and Star Rail is all that impressive because all they boil down to are Eidolons and luck-sacking the fuck out of your relics. Go try doing an FGOTA and then we'll talk. So if Star Rail is a very simple game mechanically and Godforge is basing its gameplay on that, how skill-based is Godforge gonna be exactly? Again, I assume that
It's not. It just isn't. Like, there's nothing like super skillful about Star Rail's gameplay at all, right? It's just read the character, read the kit, put A, B, C, D together. It's not that difficult.
Developers will add more mechanics to differentiate its gameplay from Star Rail at least a little bit, but I have some very real doubts at the moment.
Oh, it is Calliope. Yo, based. I just saw it. Look, he has deadbeats right here. He has the wow, wait, I wish I had that. That's a really good one. Damn.
As to how much knowledge you'll really need to have to play this game. And to make matters worse,
He has toe on he has toe on the right side. He also has Crony on the left, okay? I thought this didn't look like Calliope. She looks like, I don't know, like a little too thin-ish. It's weird. But yeah, I mean it has to be.
Mtashed also said that Godforge will have PvP, and it seems like he wants it, or at least a part of it, to be as fair and balanced as possible, where gear and whaling for gacha characters won't be a factor, and it'll be more about how good you are at the game. And that's
I don't even know, like, for an RPG, like, how you could really do that, but sure, cool. I don't know. The thing is like, I would never touch that game with a 10-foot pole, just because there's no character I want to, like, max or see pop the fuck off, you know? That's the whole appeal of Honkai Star Rail, Zenless Zone Zero, the whole appeal of Wuthering Waves, all these gacha games is like, you're going to pick a character that you want to see pop the fuck off, and that character is 9 times out of 10 going to be your waifu or husbando.
sounds good and all, sure, but if Godforge ends up not being that much more mechanically dense than Star Rail is, then again, how much skill is there really gonna be? I also question his credentials when it comes to the kind of work that he's done for Godforge. In his video, Mtashed says that he's consulted on things like clan boss design, PvP, and monetization, and after seeing the actual gameplay, it's quite easy to assume that he also probably told the Fateless devs to go look at Star Rail for some inspiration. But how much does he know about these things really? Like, some gameplay aspects, I'm sure he knows a thing or two about, like boss fight design perhaps, since he comes from a Diablo and Destiny background, judging from his previous non-gacha content.
Sure.
So I won't judge him there. But PvP? If you want to design a gacha PvP, then I would hope that you have extensive experience playing other gachas that have PvP to understand what makes them work or not.
True. From what I understand, like, this is Summoner Wars, right? So, like, oh, what the heck? That looks like Gengar. The hell? Anyway, yeah, I would imagine, like, to console on PvP, you probably want to at least play this, or maybe like Epic 7 and pop the fuck off with it, right? I don't know.
Because a PvP experience in
What is this game? Oh, is this Epic 7? Okay, cool.
gacha game quite a bit different than what you'll find in other normal games. And again, looking at his YouTube content, I don't see very many non-MiHoYo gachas that he's made videos for that weren't, sponsored videos, most likely. In my eyes, he's just another generic gacha content creator who rode the initial Genshin popularity wave back in 2020 and still makes his daily bread from MiHoYo games, and that's it. And given that I've been told that he
Okay, so he started as Genshin. I thought he started as Honkai.
doesn't even like gacha games all that much, he doesn't particularly strike me as the kind of dude who plays other gacha games off camera. I know very little about game development, and usually I don't, go out of my way to criticize someone in a field that I don't feel qualified to speak in.
But this is the gacha game expert over here, okay? We got motherfucking Tuhu over here. Okay, he's the gacha god. He's got 9 gacha games he's playing at every minute of the day. He's it. He knows.
But in this case, I would like to think that if you're being hired as a consultant for something, you should at least have a lot of experience in regards to the field that the project you're working on is in. Maybe Mtashed has a lot of experience.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, realistically, Mtash probably just knows one of the devs or one of the people, the CEO, right? And they're just loop him in, right? Trying to use his audience base, try to use his clout to try and market the game to his audience, and see if they could make a quick buck. That's what I would think.
In some areas that the Fateless devs find very valuable, and all credit to him if that's the case. And I actually fully agree with what Mtash says in his video about how gacha games need to be played as actual games, that playing the game itself needs to be treated as a priority, so I think he's at least got the right mindset to work on Godforge.
I don't agree with that at all. I feel like gacha games are lesser games, and it's fine. They're not meant to be more than that. They're not meant to be greater than that. They're not meant to be played more than that at all. It is watered down usually for that because it's meant to be played on your phone. It's meant to be mobile. It's meant to be compartmentalized, and it's just meant to kind of be a vehicle to sell character designs. That's really what it is. Gacha games are whale bait. Right? They're whale bait. And so if the game itself, you're able to level up so much just from time played, then the whales are not going to be satisfied with it. It's at the end of the day, because of the monetization model, it is limited in its design. That's how I feel. And I'm okay with that personally.
Considering the game they're working on,
I used to agree with that, but gaming has changed so much in the last 20 years. Even live service as a whole has changed. Great game. I think a lot of people who got on the new wave of gacha games is because they at least resemble a normal game in some sense, even if not complex. True. I would say Genshin Impact was obviously very monumental, and it is a titan in terms of where it is in the industry because it was modeled very closely after Breath of the Wild. Yes, but it's still a watered down version of that game, very much so. You can't compare it in terms of an action RPG or an action combat game to games like Devil May Cry or games like Bayonetta or anything like that.
Is a gacha, and gacha games are quite a bit different from normal games. I would expect Mtash to also have a lot of experience with gacha games specifically. But at the moment, with what I know about him and what I've seen, I don't think he does. And perhaps my biggest problem with Mtash's video is this. He doesn't call Godforge a gacha. Not once.
Well, okay, I don't agree with Tuhu's take, really, in that you need to be playing so much more gacha games to be qualified in order to, I guess, consult on it. I feel like Mtash has put plenty of time into these games, and you only really need to copy from the best in order to, I feel make a successful game. Well, I mean, I guess he might be proof in the pudding. And at the end of the day, it's whatever they're paying for, right? It's whatever this game company is wanting his expertise for. It's how they decide, how they decided it, right?
In his entire video, does he label it as a gacha game? The wording he specifically uses to describe it is a hero collector turn-based RPG.
It is a turn-based RPG. It is a hero collector. There's lots of gear. There's lots of factions. It is a game that is essentially next-gen Raid Shadow Legends, if you want to call it that.
Or something like that.
I mean, if you're going to call it next-gen Raid Shadow Legends, just call it a gacha game, right? At that point? I mean, am I crazy? Is Raid Shadow Legends not a gacha game? Don't you roll for characters? I'm pretty sure.
Because I watched this video first, before looking at the developer gameplay video, I was like, okay, I assume Godforge isn't a gacha then, given that Mtash apparently doesn't like gachas that much, so...
Here we go, let's do the 10 rolls, woo, spin, spin, spin.
Why would he work on one, right? But lo and behold, this developer gameplay video clearly shows a gacha screen. They even show their unfinished summoning it.
Bro, oh my god. I feel like if you're showcasing this, I feel like you're kind of 1 foot out the door. Like, why? If you believed in your vision, if you believed in your game, why would you show this? You know this doesn't look good.
Animation, which hopefully they've got one now that's actually finished. So clearly, Godforge is a gacha game. So then why the fuck did Mtashed not just call it that in his video? Was he trying to hide it so that, you know, he can get more people to play it? Because he's afraid that some people won't play it if they find out that it's a gacha? Or maybe
My guess is that Mtashed doesn't want his audience or whoever he's trying to market this game to compare it directly with Honkai Star Rail or like other gacha games, but it's kind of hard not to when the designs are so lifted from, like, obviously lifted from Honkai Star Rail. I don't really know.
devs themselves told him not to call it a gacha in his video? Whatever the case, personally, I find it very suspicious that he's working on a gacha game, but in his promotional video for it, he doesn't call it as such.
Yeah.
Maybe to the average viewer, this isn't really that big of a deal, but for someone like me, who made a whole ass video inflating my own ego to enviosity levels, calling himself the god of gacha games, it absolutely is. And the
See, I wasn't too far off when I said the only motherfucker who should receive praise.
reason why
The honored
is because,
one.
as I alluded to before, gacha games are very
He knows.
distinct from other genres. So much so that we call any game with like an RNG system of distributing playable characters and weapons and other content that you can spend both free and premium currency on a gacha.
Yeah.
Right? Even though gacha games themselves can have wildly different gameplay genres, from things like, you know, turn-based and tower defense to
Yeah.
real-time arena combat and even shooters. Think of it this way. When you talk about Genshin Impact, for example, if someone asks you what Genshin is, the first thing that most people would say is that it's a gacha game. Most people wouldn't call it an open-world action RPG as like the first thing that comes to mind, right?
Sure.
Maybe as the second thing.
I think it's like 50-50 or 60-40, but sure.
To describe what kind of gacha game it is, but certainly not the first. If
Yeah.
you play a gacha, you're calling it a gacha because
Yeah.
the whole gacha element and the gameplay loop associated with it are such predominant features of these kinds of games. That's why
Yeah, it's the most defining feature, because at the end of the day, these games are not sold on gameplay. These games are sold on character designs and presentation. Presentation is what they sell themselves on.
I believe that Mtashed not explicitly calling it a gacha in his promo video is an intentional decision made on either his part or the developers. And regardless of who made it, to me, this comes off as misleading, borderline deceptive even. So now
I wouldn't go that far. Like, it's thinly veiled. I wouldn't say deceptive. I don't think he's like, at the end of the day, it's a game. He's trying to market it. I don't think it's all that deep, personally.
now that I have this impression, why the fuck would I ever bother playing this whack
Does it warrant criticism? Absolutely. I feel like Tuhu is totally in the right to sort of call this out.
ass Raid Shadow Legends ripoff? Let me give you a case study on another gacha game for comparisons.
I mean, like, deceptive, you could say objectively is true, but like, is a malicious, right? And so that's me putting my own words and my own kind of spin on it. Obviously, he didn't say malicious, but like, I feel like it has that connotation. I feel like it's not that big of a deal. That's at the end of the day what I'm saying.
Sake, and it's a game that I mentioned briefly in the middle of this video. This game is called FGO, or Fate Grand Order for short. This is the very first gacha game I ever played, and it's what got me into gacha games as a whole back in 2017. Anyways, let's compare their animations. These are their animations in Godforge.
Bro, what do you mean? That looks fucking amazing, man. Holy shit. This is gacha game of the year.
And these
Wait, hold up. What is that, bro? Ew, what is... Oh, okay, that's just like a lantern there. What is this part, though? Is that part of the character? I don't see it there before. It's like after.
and these are their animations in FGO.
Ew, brother. Guys, FGO is just a better game. Bro, is that Heracles as like Azura? That's crazy. He looks like Berserker, but as an Azura. Guys, Godforge shit, Fate Grand Order, much better.
Even if you don't like the anime aesthetic that FGO has, I think there's no question that the animations in FGO are much more impactful than anything you'll see in Godforge so far.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter. Like, if you're not a fan of anime, you're never gonna play FGO. Fuck that shit. And likewise, because I'm not a fan of like the For Honor or Assassin's Creed art style, I'm never gonna play Godforge.
Also, Godforge's character design is pretty generic to me when I'm used to seeing like this.
True.
Let me end the video by saying this, right? I'm sure Fateless and Mtashed 2, for that matter, have worked hard on Godforge. Even if I know nothing about game development, I do know that it's not easy, especially these days. But what I do know is gacha. And unlike Mtashed, I have a
Fire Mtashed, hire me. That also sounds like this video.
lot of experience, perhaps a little too much, with it. I've played lots of different gacha games. I still play most of them that I picked up over the years, and most of all, I actually
This is a very elaborate sort of application. Please hire me as a consultant.
like playing them instead of
I mean, he makes a good case. I'm not gonna say I'm not trying to say otherwise. He does make a good case.
bitching about how I'm about to quit one every other goddamn week. I'm not saying that the Fateless devs should have hired me instead of Mtashed or anything. Again, I'm sure that they had the reasons for bringing him on board, and it's not like Mtashed doesn't know anything about gacha. He has been playing MiHoYo games for the past 3 years, even if it's just on and off, and that's not nothing. But what I am saying is that if
I know more.
the developers of Godforge truly care about giving their game the best chance of success,
Let me in on this. Let me in on this operation. Cut me a slice of that pie. It's me. I can do it.
they should consider looking for another consultant or two who have some actual gacha experience and
Like me.
not just Honkai Star Rail. Oh, and also have him call it a gacha game next time, because that's a pretty important detail y'all left out. And that'll
I think it was probably their direction, the devs' direction, to not call it a gacha game.
do it with my rant about Mtashed and his involvement in Godforge. If you liked what I had to say here, make sure to like the video and subscribe. I have more videos like this on the channel and more to come. I got a Patreon in case you want to see your name show up at the end of these videos, and I also dual stream to
Let's
both
go.
YouTube and Twitch, twitch.tv/ToastNumber98. So stop by if you want to talk about anything.
Oh, there you go. That's the dude. Thanks again for the raid, dude. Appreciate it.
Gacha related. Thanks for watching. Be cool, y'all.
You literally yapped without knowing anything about me, Limfal. I have a Maxis raid account, a 317 speed, ran in Epic 7. All I am doing is trying to help them make a good game. It isn't that deep. I agree. It really isn't that deep. I have a Maxis raid account. What does that mean? Maxed out Raid Shadow Legends account? Is that what he's saying? 317 speed ran in Epic 7. Is ran the name of a character, or is he saying he speed ran and he got a score of 317? I'm not following. This is a little too much for me. All I'm doing is trying to help them make a good game. I honestly think so too. I don't really like I said when two was talking about like, oh, it was deceptive or whatever. It's not that big of a deal for me. I honestly didn't think it was that crazy. I mean, like, that's the thing too. It's like it's not really his game or his project. He's a part of it, right? But there's only like so much he can do. Peep the replies. This guy is clearly just trying to rage bait you. Even if I also don't understand why you would associate yourself with some random gacha game, it is more than obvious that this guy is just trying to get your attention because he clearly isn't getting the views on his channel that he once had. I don't know, is Tuhu not doing that well? I feel like Tuhu pops off. I see him on my home feed every now and then. Don't take the bait, Mtashed. This guy wants your job. It did kind of sound like that. You're not giving them the right tips. Not saying you aren't helping them, but that game has a lot to go through to be close to HSR raid. Okay, but realistically speaking, I feel like this comment's in bad faith. Like, what could Mtash do? Besides give advice, do you think he has any real say in their graphical presentation or like how they sort of market themselves or how they're structured? I don't really think he has a lot to say in terms of like them doing pre-alpha and going into beta. You know, he could give their advice, but at the end of the day, it's like it's not really his decision to make. It is interesting to want to continue to tie your name, your brand, your association with that kind of project, which personally I don't really see going many places. But I mean, like, that's up to him. I don't think he is responsible or even able to get that game close to Honkai Star Rail or Raid Shadow Legends. Like I said, the call out is justified. Is Mtash being deceptive, and is he like, you know, morally in the wrong or whatever? Like, should he be sort of, how would you say it? Is he a bad actor? I don't really think so. But yeah, that is funny. That was a funny video.